Check out this cool thing. Magnus Video Tripod. Now, I got no affiliation with this tripod itself, but it's cool to have, and actually I'm using it right now to make this video, and it's pretty awesome. I just think it just kicks butt that even though I have no affiliation, I could bring around a tripod, which comes in these pretty cool carrying cases, and it says Magnus on it, and it's like my channel, so it totally goes with me. So I just thought I'd mention that. But welcome to this video. Now, you saw the title, R5, 60 frames per second. Now, this is something that I've actually experimented with because this past weekend I recorded a music video where there was a lot of dancing involved. And in this music video, I was actually struggling. See, the R5 can record 60 frames per second in 4K, and it can record 8K RAW at up to 30 frames per second. Now, I filmed in 24 frames per second in 8K, and that was my decision. But when I wanted that slow-mo, I can't really get it off of the R5. Or can I? Not in 8K, but in 4K. See, I recently did a wedding where I busted my R5, but before that, I had decided to shoot almost the entire wedding in 4K 60 frames per second, which I didn't have to worry about overheating on the R5 because if you watch my other videos, I've already solved the overheating. So I could record an entire wedding, and it was 92 degrees that day, 60 frames per second in 4K all day, and I didn't have an issue. However, this music video, which had a lot of dancing, I would want to slow it down, but I did want the ability to adjust white balance in post to actually get 12-bit color and push it to the limit as much as possible. And that prioritized over the slow motion, but I still wanted slow motion in some parts. How was I going to do that? Well, I'll tell you and how I figured it out, but I will tell you this, it's not an in-camera hack. Come with me. Now, I'm still unpacking all the stuff that I took with me. I got a bunch of camera bags, and I got a bunch of other things that I got to put away. Now, this is a classic insulated bag that I would actually put the R5 in with a couple of coolers in it and keep the camera cool. So I was able to record the entire thing in 8K, no problem, no overheating, never overheated on me. So as I'm putting this stuff away, the opportunity to record the music video was pretty awesome, and I actually enjoyed it. And I didn't bring much gear, just kind of a couple of bags of what you see here. But I did a lot of lights and a lot of like mood setting, and it was pretty fun. But let's dive right into what I did in particular to record 60 frames per second. Now, I set the camera at 24 frames per second in 8K RAW, and I recorded everything on it. And I had my trusty gimbal with me to record smooth motion and everything, just to keep the shots steady and not too much movement in the camera to actually have this work out. These lights I used for the music video, and they add special nice tints and colors to it. They work off of these Sony NPF batteries, and they're pretty cool. Going back up. I'm putting this light where it belongs. I usually have it at blue and maximum exposure. So let me change this, the tint on this. Blue. Or at least that it looks blue to me. I don't know what color it looks to you guys. But put that right there, and that should be good. After recording the entire day, I actually brought the R5 footage to Adobe Premiere. Now in Adobe Premiere, I'm able to pretty much see the raw video right away. And the raw video looks good, and the timeline is 24 frames per second. But I want it to be like it was 60 frames per second 8K RAW. So here's what I did. Now I took the footage, and as you can see, the footage is highlighted and it plays back in normal speed. I right-clicked on the footage and selected speed duration. From here, I typed in 40%, because 40% would be what I would slow it down if it was recorded at 60 frames per second. Now, the problem with just doing that is that it's just doubling up on the missing frames, and it still looks choppy, slowed down to 40%. But then what I selected was optical flow rather than just the normal default setting. And what optical flow will do is it will study your footage and add the missing additional frames, assuming what they would be based off of the movement. And then voila, what you're able to get is a simulated 60 frames per second shot, because I slowed the footage down to 40% of regular speed. Now here's a couple of caveats that you'd get. It's not perfect. Depending on the motion and how it was recorded, you might get some unwanted artifacts, especially if the motion is pretty fast and unpredictable. The software won't really be able to tell where it was going. But if the motions are smooth and what you were doing is smooth, or the action is smooth and it's kind of in a relatively easy flow to guess between frames, it's going to look like you filmed it at 60 frames per second in 8K. Minus a few hiccups, like when a guy was spinning around in my footage. He looked really out of it. But depending on the look of what I want to accomplish, it could actually look kind of cool. So I'm kind of contemplating, do I want to do that on purpose at this point to add to the dreamy flow and the dreamy nature of the actual video shoot. So that's it. That's how you can get 8K footage at 60 frames per second off of the R5 without having it in the actual camera. Perfect? No. Possible? Yes, which is awesome. Sure, it doesn't replace the ability of the R5C, but there were a lot of caveats that the R5C had that I did not have to face with the R5. The entire day's shoot I recorded in 2 batteries, which R5C I'd be lucky to get through just 1 or 2 shots without having to switch the battery. The R5, I was able to record with no overheating whatsoever, which you wouldn't have issues on the R5C as well for overheating, but the fact that I didn't have that issue on the R5 just pretty much was pretty cool. And it's a smaller, slightly smaller body. I can switch between photo and video and it didn't give me an issue at all. It's actually really quick because it's the same menu system, and I set it up as one shortcut rather than hitting the mode dial and then info. I have it as a shortcut into a little small button right next to the shutter, and it just goes boop, switches from photo to video instantaneously. And I was able to get some cool behind the scenes shots and then switch right back to video when necessary. And I had the gimbal, so image stabilization really didn't matter, but if I needed it, I would have had it, which is pretty cool too. And there were a couple of shots that I just got handheld off the R5 and image stabilization worked well. Anyway, enough bragging. I'm just bragging because I'm so happy to have this camera back after I smashed it, and it's working perfectly. But let me know what you guys think about the 60 frames per second in the R5. Is that enough for you to convince you not to get to the R5C? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, like, share, and you can make my day if you subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. I gotta put the rest of this stuff away. See you later.